Okay, Mary Ann, you want to call the roll?
Mr. Gritchen?
Here.
Ms. Hruska? Dr. King?
Here.
Mr. Moon?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Ms. Cindy?
Yes. Okay, I'd like to remind everybody that please shut off their cell phones. If you have them on, please turn them off and put them to vibrate. All right, we're going to open up the committee of the whole meeting with visitors' comments. Anybody want to speak on this side? Seeing none, anybody want to speak on this side? All right, seeing none, then we'll move to our discussion.
Do they?
Do you want to speak, ma'am? Please step up here. And I need you to state your name and the town that you're from. Right here.
Good evening, board members.
You can sit down.
I can sit down.
We're not going to bite, I swear to God.
Good evening, board members. My name is Gloria Scamilla, and I'm Daniel Scamilla's mom, and
What town are you from?
Riverside.
Okay.
And I was sent a letter regarding my residency, so I requested a hearing, and I haven't heard from anybody.
The district will be contacting you Monday. We're in
Okay.
the process of scheduling that right now. We will be in contact with you via phone as well as certified mail
All right.
on Monday.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, let's move into our next item of, on the agenda, and that is student and staff recognition. So, Kevin?
Yep, we have several students today being recognized. The 24th Annual Sheriff's Youth Service Medal of Honor Award. And Pam, do you want to announce these names, just so I don't butcher them up a little bit?
I might do the same. I'll try together.
First off, I have Valija Aleska, senior. Valija?
Is Elijah here?
Vilia. Okay, there you go.
He did butcher it, see, he was right, so.
Amanda Hena. Kovas Kulbis.
Okay.
Natalie Moore. Natalie, why don't you stay up here for a minute?
Yeah, why don't you stay?
Kristen Rapoli. Kristen. Juliana Sidney.
I don't know who you are, but
Your name's familiar.
Megan Walson.
we should do
And Daniel Gonzalez.
it. Okay.
Wait, let's see if someone's locked out. We have.
Okay, let's give him a hand for this award.
Ladies, can you tell us what the Medal of Honor is?
Well, basically we just, throughout our high school career, we've done a lot of service hours for the community and for the school. So this year, Cook County contacted us and gave us an award.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies. Good job.
Okay, the next item of business is the Student Association report.
Okay, so on November 4th, we had our first blood drive. Life Source workers came and they set up in this alumni lounge a bunch of donation seats. And we had 119 donors, and our goal was 120. And we had a lot of signups, but there were a lot of absences due to a bunch of field trips that day. And we didn't have to turn many people down, so we're looking forward to our next blood drive, so we think it'll be a really big success. Our next drive will be February 29th, and if anyone is interested in donating and giving more blood donations to our school to help with scholarship money from LifeSource, you can go to any LifeSource destination and use the code 313, and your blood will count towards RB scholarship money.
Next, we are doing a coat and blanket drive during the holiday season. It actually started yesterday, and it will run through December 9th. And we're collecting coats, blankets, hats, gloves, and scarves that will be distributed throughout the community to to various food pantries and churches in need.
We've also been working with an organization called Pro SC, and through that we're going to sponsor a holiday party at the Children's Shelter downtown. We're going to be raising money from November 22nd to December 9th. Throughout the community, we're going to have toy drives at the Riverside Library, Brookfield, LaGrange Park, and LaGrange Library. So if you have any toys, feel free to drop them off there. And we're also taking monetary donations throughout the turkey tournament, which is going on right now, and that'll be until Saturday. And also throughout all lunches from December 5th to December 9th. The holiday party will be December 12th. It's Monday at 5:30, and all are welcome to come. You just have to make sure you check in with either me or Miss Yule or Miss Minoff if you actually feel interested, and all students are welcome.
We had our third Spirit Friday competition last Friday. And
Hold on. Hey, if you're here for a student recognition award, we'll call you back up in 1 second, okay?
all right, and it was a little better than the time before, but it's still under 50%. So we're still trying to work on getting the Spirit up on Fridays, so students can wear blue and white. Trying to reward them with candy bars that say you were caught with Spirit wear on today. So yeah, we're working on that.
Well, speaking of spirit, Paul, do you want to explain
Oh,
what you guys are
yeah.
representing right here?
We're all wearing our 6-man shirts for the basketball game tonight.
I have a full body blue and white suit that I wear for
Oh.
sporting events, and I didn't feel it'd be appropriate to wear that today.
Oh.
So
Anything else?
Any questions?
Any questions for student association?
What's, if we want to donate some coats and blankets, to whom do we donate them to?
There's drop-offs actually in the turkey tourney and as well in
The turkey
the
turn?
turkey tournament,
The
or the basketball tournament, and in the main office as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Student Association.
Are you still collecting pop tabs?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're always
All
collecting
year.
them, so
And what is your count up to this year?
that's a good question.
Can you bring that back to us in a month?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
And where do you drop off your pop tabs? It's in the main office too, right? Is there
Yeah.
anywhere
Yeah.
else?
Or Miss Yule.
And what does that go for people who don't know?
It goes towards the Ronald McDonald House, and I know they like melt it all, but they get money for it. So yeah,
Or we could bring them here and you deliver them for us?
yeah.
Yes.
21 cents a pound, I think. Kinda. But,
It helps children in need.
Yeah.
This is a really busy time of the year for the SA, and they just keep moving ahead. They're very active and a wonderful group to work with, and I know they're anxious to get out of here and get to the game. So we release you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank So we had one other student walk in. What young lady, why don't you come forward?
Walked in for recognition.
Come on forward.
Come on forward. What's your name? Alexa.
Alexa, congratulations. What service did you do to receive the service medal of honor?
I volunteered in Kenya and just around, just helping with kids and stuff.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming tonight with your father. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. Okay, our next item on the agenda is our superintendent's report.
Okay, just a couple brief items for tonight. The collective bargaining for legal representation will be, the interviews for that will be December 7th and 8th. That will be a closed session. Mary Ann will take care of posting that since that is related to personnel, and a personnel item. The school representatives from the school board as well as myself attended the III conference this past weekend downtown. And it was a very beneficial experience. We attended a lot of good workshops. We were able to talk with other board members and superintendents, and I think it was a positive experience. We had board members participate in all-day conferences as well as different panel discussions and workshops. Triple I stands for the IASB, which is the School Board Association, the IASA, which is the Superintendent's Association, and the IASBO, which is the Illinois Association of School Business Officials. So they bring all three of those together and have a large conference every November in downtown Chicago. I have officially finished meeting with all the individual departments. We had some very good discussions. There is some anxiety amongst our staff. I would be lying to you if I said that there aren't people that are nervous about how we're going to proceed with our current financial situation. And I know some of that will be addressed tonight with background information. But I wanted to make sure this was stated at the public meeting as well, is that the same presentation that PMA will be giving tonight will be given to the staff on November 29th at 3:15. We were able to work that out, so as soon as they come back from Thanksgiving break, they will have an opportunity to hear the same presentation from Howard Kraus, our PMA representative, and ask him some questions that you'll be able to ask tonight. So that's really about it from superintendent's report. Pam, do you want to follow up with the principal's report?
Certainly. I'd just like to highlight a couple of recent events. Saturday, November 12th, I participated along with Nick Gale and several of our students in the Progress Park dedication in Brookfield. And that was an effort by the Brookfield Beautification Committee at the area where our students helped create a mural, our fine arts students, along with professional artists from Brookfield and other people who volunteered to make that happen with the fencing and all of that. And then we also had our students write some poetry, and some of those poems were read on that day by our students. And then there were carved rocks that are put around the bench that was donated by the zoo. So it's a beautiful park there at the roundabout circle that I hope people take some time to enjoy. And it was wonderful to be invited to collaborate with the community and have our students really bring citizenship to life. So that was a fun day. And then later that day, came back over here to participate in the RB Educational Foundation's telethon. And thanks to Gary Prokes and the rest of the students and staff who worked so hard to put that on, and the foundation members, they raised so far $19,200. So yay, RB TV and the telethon and the Education Foundation. That money comes back to our students. It's really great because a lot of our graduates even come back to talk about what they did with the grants. Our teachers talk about the money they received and what they did with it. So that's a wonderful opportunity for the community to help support some initiatives that feed back into the school and really inspire our students and our teachers. So thanks to the community for supporting that. We hosted over the last 4 weeks several articulation visits from our feeder middle schools. And so what happened is teachers came over first for English and reading, and also some special ed teachers. On Thursday, October 24th, or 27th, and November 3rd, the math teachers came. The 10th, the science teachers, and then social science and the elective. So they spent time talking with each other, talking with us, trying to make good links so that the kids come prepared to RB, and then they spent time in the classroom seeing what is going on so that they understand how our students are placed and what the curriculum is that they're expected to have. This is something we planned last year. It was done at my former district, a very powerful experience. Heard back from each of the principals how much that meant, and that they're excited to continue that articulation. Our teachers here would now like to go into their schools and make that linkage even stronger. We have a feeder principals meeting that's scheduled to take place December 14th. I did 2 of those last year, so that will continue in order to make this partnership the best it can possibly be to support our students. That was exciting. We have our We Are RB event that's coming up for all incoming 8th grade families and their students. This is where parents and students are welcome to come to the school from 6:30 to 8 on Wednesday, November 30th. That's when we get right back from break. And it's an opportunity to hear me talk to them, meet Dr. Skinkus, to go through an activity and sport, athletic and elective fair in the gymnasium, take a tour of the building. We open up spots. We have students available demonstrating in different areas. An opportunity to also talk to some of the department chairs and to be a part of that, to transition smoothly into RB and to get their feet wet and make the big high school not seem as scary. So a number of our students Student Association and NHS will be here to guide our students as well. It's an exciting evening, and that's coming up. We encourage everybody to come to that if they're coming to RB next year. Registration process is underway. We went online with our curriculum guide this year. We hit our deadline of doing that on November 11th, so that's good. The juniors met with their counselors. They're in registration process right now, and we're getting ready to move to our sophomore class next. Incoming freshman recommendations will be coming from the feeder schools on December 5th, so we're moving, we're cranking away and already working on the next year. Wanted to take a few minutes to make note of some of our outside funding for activities to bring you a little bit up to date on that. Hopefully you got the opportunity to see Little Abner last week, which our Riverside Junior Theater Guild hosted here for our students that were participating in that. A lot of parents were involved in that. That was a wonderful production. They did an excellent job on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week. We did have outside funding come through for the art club. We had looked for a sponsor. We did have one apply, an art teacher apply, and that interview is going on next week. So we'll see how that, we expect that to pan out. That's somebody who's subbed here. Our math club parents did come through with their outside funding donation, and we have advertised for the co-sponsors for that. We did not have those people, so we put our own feelers out and made some calls to some of our subs, and we are waiting to hear back. We have a couple of potential subs that we're hoping that have math degrees that might be interested in doing that. So we just wanted to kind of get you apprised, keep you apprised of some of that. So we thank those parents for supporting their students and for being patient as we work through the process.
Okay. Any questions for Pam?
For Kevin. At some time, a meeting, I hope, and the RB Education Foundation come in and tell us what they do and what they have done.
Sure. That would be nice.
They can schedule that.
I have a question, Matt. I wanted this on the agenda about the math club.
Yeah.
What's our policy then about who's going to be the sponsor?
Well,
They have to have teacher's credentials, or?
That's what
Yeah.
we're starting with, and if we don't, we said it was preferred. So, because the students are pretty advanced in their math skills, and from our conversations with our sponsors and other sponsors, it's kind of difficult if they don't have some assistance. So at least if one of the two would have a math background. So I believe the posting said preferred, but we didn't limit it to that.
One thing we were talking about, Dr. Keene, was just like in our postings for coaches, if they're not a certified sub or a certified FTE with a state certificate, the IHSA requires ASEP certification, which is like a weekend course that at least talks about the appropriate guidelines for supervision and kind of more of the managerial and supervision responsibilities that come with being a coach or a sponsor. So we were talking that in the event that we could not secure somebody with math credentials, we'd like for them to at least have this ASEP certification, so that when they're riding on the school bus, taking the kids to a math contest or something of that nature, they do understand our some general protocols of supervision and chaperoning kids.
Is there a reason that the math sponsors from the prior years aren't interested, Pam? Do you know?
Can't hear you.
Yeah,
asked
you
her if
asked why
she-
they're not
Yeah,
interested. I haven't talked to them directly at this point. I know one's picked up. I think one is doing another some courses outside of school. I'm not sure about the other one. I think at this point in the year they weren't interested in it, but I'm not sure. They haven't stepped forward.
Because I got to tell you, a couple of my kids were in it. I couldn't even do one problem they ever brought home. I don't see how somebody that doesn't have a math degree could really do much for them.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Pam?
I have one question. It might be for either Pam or Kevin. How does that work then? If we're going to look for a substitute or prefer somebody with math background, and the stipend position is contractually negotiated, but is it contractually negotiated for somebody that's certified, but if we're getting somebody who's not a certified teacher, then do we still have to follow the contractual and negotiated stipend?
Past practice has been that we have coaches in the building that are not certified staff members. Past practice has been that they go to the lowest step on the salary schedule that's in the, for that particular stipend or club in that contract for that year.
Okay.
So they would start at year one.
Any other questions? Okay, enrollment projections?
You had in your packet the enrollment projections that were put together for fiscal 2013 through 2017. Mary Ann had contacted all of the feeder schools and received all of their enrollment, actually from preschool all the way through 8th grade. And I looked back over the past few years, and we receive about 85% of the 8th graders that we have in the feeder schools, so about 15% are going on to private schools. So I used the 85% number. I brought in 85% of the total 8th graders that were out there in all the feeder schools. And I also looked, and there really wasn't any set pattern of the students who came in as freshmen and whether or not that same number was followed through all the way to senior year. In some cases, the number went up. In some cases, it went down. So for purposes of this projection, I just kept it constant. If we had, for example, we have 382 freshmen this year, I kept that constant over the next 3 years through their senior years. And I think you can see from the projection that it actually is fairly steady. There's not any major increase in the enrollment. And looking at the feeder school enrollments, there's not any big increase coming, a number of years down the road.
Hey, Tim, not even a year ago, we were projecting 1,700 students by 2016. What changed?
I don't see those numbers in terms of the projections that we got this year.
Yours sounds like a pretty good analysis.
Where is
Were
St.
you
John
aware of that?
Lutheran at?
47th in Brainerd.
And that's in our district?
No, that's private school.
I know, but wouldn't they be going to?
Well, they may go there, they may live in our district and just go there as 8th grade.
Yeah, my children went there.
Okay.
And this is, Mary Ann, the second page with all the feeder schools, that was just updated this year, correct, from each school?
Yes.
So, I mean, even if you look at those numbers, there's not even a hidden, you see a big increase in, around District 96, they got the 184 from 139, there's about a 50% increase for 2 or 3 years. But, it's not enough to where you would say 200 in one particular year.
Tim, did you have any files that supported previous projections?
I had files that Chris had done. I looked back at those, but again, when I was looking at these numbers, I didn't see those kinds of increases. As Kevin said, if you look at District 96, 7th grade is 184, go all the way down to 2nd grade, it's 184. So it bounces around a little bit, but there's no huge jump that continues to jump.
Well, it's something of a relief from what we had heard.
But I don't know if you answered this question earlier, Tim. Were you able to see why your number, we're not saying you're wrong, were you able to see why your numbers are different than what his numbers were? It's 250 difference in the number of students, which is
no, I didn't see where he was coming up with those kinds of increases.
No, I didn't either.
Was it this type of analysis where he was going out to feeder schools, or was it just some?
We receive this report every year like that.
It's the same analysis that's received every
Yeah.
year that I believe Mary Ann contacts all of feeder schools.
So when Tim and I sat and looked at this, we looked at 2 or 3 years back of these charts. Mm-hmm. We didn't see that spike either.
Good.
So we're not, we were kind of wondering too, whether we were accounting for new property or something of that nature.
And he didn't have written documented assumptions on feeder plus expected growth in new households coming in or anything like that?
No.
Any other questions on enrollment?
I do. This is an issue that I think we have to investigate, because as a taxpayer myself, I want to know where that number came from. because I have this document here, February 2011, sent out to everyone in the district. And it's a fact sheet on the referendum. And it gives various things on it. One of the statements, enrollment has increased from 1,050 students in 2000 to almost 1,700 students in 2016 projected. Now, we have to let the taxpayers know we're telling the truth. So I think we really need to find out where this 1,700 came from. It came from somewhere. Someone didn't make this up.
Okay.
So maybe we can look into that.
Again, it was an alleged projection.
So Tim, can you look at that to see where the number?
Yes.
I just have, Tim, maybe another private school that a lot of kids go to is Timothy Christian. You know, I don't know if you keep numbers. And then I just had one question. I'm actually surprised to see how many kids are still in private schools given the economic times. Do you have any kind of historical data to show that the number of private schools has remained the same, or we have actually, or that's actually gone down, and we have more kids in the public school?
I'd have to do an analysis of the number of students in the public schools versus the private schools over the past few years. I can do that.
I'm just curious, because that might be one way we would get kids if, you know, the private schools become cost prohibitive.
Marianne, you have a few of these charts going back a few years, don't you? So we'll be able to provide those to the board if I want in the next update next week.
Well, Laura, that wouldn't be a big change, basically. He estimated that 85% of the kids from the private schools are going to come to RP.
No, what I was saying is I'm surprised how many students are still in private schools, and if that number, you know, K through 5, I mean, or K through 8, has decreased, because as the economy is harder, less people can afford private school, and we could possibly see growth in the public school because less are just choosing to go to private school.
Or other, here's what's happening also in the private schools. People are making their choice to either go to St. Cletus or go to other private schools in the area. So I know that in the St. Barb's, some of the families did go to St. Cletus. So it depends on where they're going to.
For the last 3 years, we've been given this type of a document, and it has the type of backup that's on here. And for the 2 years prior, some of the 5-year projections always had this spike up to the 1,700 number. And if you go back the last few years, we're in that 1,450, slightly more, slightly less. And each of these numbers that they're projecting next year, 2012-13, 1,430, 2013-14, 1,440, 2014-15, 1,469, 2015-16, 1,447, and 2016-17, 1,433. For the last 3 years, it's been in that mid 1,400 range, and you know, with the way the economy is, a lot of in the property not really circulating as much as it would. A lot of people have their kids go through the school and then they haven't moved out or sold, and so I think that might be one of the factors in the steadiness of it, as opposed to a housing market that would provide a lot of turnover and keep pumping new kids into the community. So I always was skeptical about the 1,700 number, because as I kept looking every year that it went by, it would increase just a few. So I agree with John, we should at least take a look at to see, are the numbers that we're doing this year, are they good, accurate numbers that we're giving out to the community?
Okay.
I think to follow on what Mike has said, about 5 years ago when we first saw the 1,500 number, it is true. We did have a lot more turnover in homes. We had more movement from east to west. And so we did, you know, we were at 1,000 in 2000, a little over 1,000 students. So we did make significant jumps in the early 2000s because people were moving in and houses were turning quite quickly. I know when we moved into Brookfield in 2000, if you didn't buy the house within 8 days, it was gone. You know, houses were selling quite rapidly in this
Well,
community.
what you're saying, Laura, is the household size was getting bigger because older empty nesters were selling?
And people were moving through the neighborhood, as Mike has said, you know, the market was more fluid. People were buying and selling and just, you know, kind of moving from east to west or whatever direction. And with this economy, it definitely has slowed down. People
Right,
are
but
staying.
That could be a
input-
factor.
Yes, but input equals output there.
Exactly.
It has to be, there'd have to be an increase in students of school age.
Well, I think that you gotta also look at another thing directionally. If you look at 94, 95, and 96, you're not seeing big jumps coming in that would foster, you know what I mean? I don't see the big jumps in all three of those districts, so.
And Tim, you said there's not any kind of smooth data on students transferring in at the high school age, right?
Right.
Because that would be another factor, if people are moving in while their kids are in high school, renting or buying and then moving out.
Right, or transferring out.
You're just not seeing any kind of
Not seeing
trend
that.
there. Okay.
Plus, it also could be too, building on your point, is the residency, you know, with us getting stricter on residency, is that stopping, you know what I mean, that movement? So,
Tim, I hate to do extra work for you, but we're not reinventing the wheel on these enrollment projections. It could be the previous, our old projections were based on some other modeling. So the point is, we just need to find out, you know, what's the correct method here. I mean, this is done every day across the country. So is this 85%, is that reasonable? Maybe it's not. You know what I'm saying?
What I wrote here is that I'll have, I'll go back 3 years on the projections that Mary Ann has to show you where we identified our trend. I can't tell you what previous administration was thinking, but if I can get you 3-year historicals and kind of match it up with our current attendance, that would almost take us through our current
Or
three
And we
classes.
could see how good.
Or if
they
she had the support for how they came up with the 1,700.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really what he wants to know.
And it depends on which document you look at in time. There was a August 2008 projection for 2013 to be 1,606. And so it depends on the point in time. So there are different different releases from the district and the
It's a
board.
trend of a trend.
okay, so we'll follow up on that and get that numbers to you. Any other questions on this? All right, the next one, item on our agenda is estimated tax levy.
I wanted to include this just one last time before you vote on this in December. We had Tim go through it one more time and just do the estimated levy. The CPI that will be being used will be 1.5%, but to ensure that we didn't miss anything or under levy, we did a 3% levy. So I just wanted to make sure you had one more chance to see this. You saw this last meeting as well. Before you have to, we do have to absolutely vote on it Tuesday, December 13th, because it needs to be to the county before the last Tuesday in December.
Okay. Any questions on it? I know you're just giving it, so. Okay, next item on our agenda is advisory council reports. Kevin?
Okay, I just want to provide a brief summary for each of these. There hasn't been much, there's no items right now for you to consider regarding action for December, so I'm just going to update you briefly on the activities of the meetings that met, the councils that met in November. In regards to facilities, we're working on 2 issues. We want to reword some of the language and groups in our current rental agreement, but we talked as a group that we have a current document in place that the board approved in August and a fee structure in August that's working well for now. And the facilities committee and myself will be working to revamp that language and also take a look at the fee structure so that we can put it in place before the end of the school year at the latest July 1. The second thing is we reviewed 2 amendments, reviewed an amendment with the Aramark contract that finalizes their agreement and the reduction of services for this year and the overall $41,000 reduction that we approved. So we're going to go forward and approve that amendment to the contract. And then we have one other issue in regards to the Aramark contract, in regards to some issues related to maintenance of grounds, and the Facilities Council is working with and is scheduled to meet with Aramark again in January. to discuss that. The odor in the special ed wing, the facilities council and myself walked that. We recognize that there's still an issue with odor in regards to, it comes and goes infrequently when one of our sanitary basements ejects to the sewer system. So we have a series of building engineers and construction personnel coming out tomorrow that did the renovation project. They're supposed to be doing a series of tests with staff from Aramark to try to identify that and finally get that addressed. And the boilers, we believe everything has been installed correctly at this point, and now it's a matter of just waiting to see how they handle the cold weather for consecutive days before we sign off that that work's completed.
Any questions on facilities?
Is there any, how's the pool doing?
Pool is doing very good. We have a Ceresco rep coming out hopefully before the weather changes over. But what we're going to do is we're going to, Dr. Keene and I were on the roof. We're looking at that unit with Dennis. We're going to put in a larger pulley so that it even minimizes vibration more, so that there's less vibration with the exhaust fan for the pool. But we have had no complaints with temperature and or humidity in the pool since that fan's been addressed. And the Ceresco rep referred us to one of their service agents in the area to do the work, so that this way it's all Ceresco people doing the work on the Ceresco unit.
Have we had any damage inside that facility? Was there any damage result of?
None has been identified at this time.
But we're monitoring, right?
Yep.
But there are some allegations in the community of humidity might have affected the sign up there. Is that,
we haven't had
there's
any.
no basis to that?
No.
All right.
No, we had a little bit of rust, discoloration of some of the steel in the corners from the condensation, and that can be addressed this summer. We'll be repainted and scrubbed.
That could have happened anyway.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
But we haven't had any reports of any malfunctions in regards to electrical devices or anything of that nature.
So the scoreboard works?
Yeah, we haven't had any reports of anything like that.
Yeah, it seemed to be working well.
All right, any other questions on facilities? All right, next, Personnel Advisory Council.
Personnel Advisory Council met last week. We reviewed the position control document as we prepare for staffing after the first of the year. We identified position control documents for future, so we have teacher, support staff, stipends, and administration all on spreadsheet documents that the administration and the Personnel Council can work on and work off of on a regular basis and just update as we staff those positions. There was a question from a board member in regards to sick day allotment. There was a clause in the contract that after 10 years of service at Riverside Brookfield, a staff member be awarded 180 days of sick time. We currently have over 54 staff members over 180 days of sick time accumulated.
Can that be applied to early retirement?
It can be applied to early retirement, yes, but it also can be used.
Oh.
And we're not credited, there's no penalty to us, right?
How many did you say?
54. So.
And how many full FTEs are there?
95.
So the cost to the district would be is if somebody chose to use those sick days, and we currently have in a contract, if, say, a teacher, a substitute would come in and we have to pay a substitute at.
Correct. As long as proper medical notification was provided.
I get confused when you give numbers of employees. We have teachers, there's 95.
95.
How
And
many?
that includes counselors, social workers, anybody certified staff.
Okay, who doesn't it include?
Support staff.
And how many people are there?
20. Well, if you go down to like security, aides. Everybody, I think we have a total of about 135.
Okay, so when we say 54, are the non-certified teachers eligible for that benefit
No,
also?
they are not.
Just teachers?
Just teachers.
Certified, okay.
Right. So 54 of our 95 have over 180 days.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
For personnel?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have two questions.
Okay.
I've got another one too.
Okay. So, my first question, when Do we get to see this master document as you're developing it?
I would imagine you'll see the final draft once the personnel and the superintendent are done working on it.
Okay, come in. And then the second one, because it said there's no council meetings in December, but at the conference, the Illinois conference, they talked about the Senate Bill 7, and repeatedly they have said that the committee, the joint committee, I imagine who's ever on that, has to have a meeting
Before December 1st.
by December 1.
Right.
By
So
law,
we have
so
two
they
things
have
in
that.
place. One, we already had a joint committee meeting with Pam and the union.
Okay.
And the second thing is we have a memorandum of understanding already in place that shows we have a collective bargaining agreement through the 2013 school year, which exempts us from the requirements under Senate Bill 7 that our attorney provided us. And that we signed off with the union.
When did you sign off on that?
In November, I believe that went to the board, or that was discussed in October or November, the board meeting. Closed session.
Okay.
So, the Senate Bill 7 directly impacts, at the conference there were many board members, and our feeder district, District 95, said that they had their attorneys come in and do a little presentation what that meant, and they thought it was very helpful. So we may want to consider that, because it changes, evaluation, what it means. It puts teachers in 4 tiers, 4 categories, how that happens, a new schedule. And so we just may want to get,
I already have that in process.
Okay.
So it's
John?
something Pam and I are working on.
This policy of 20 or below, is that going to be voted on like at the time of enrollment or time of projected enrollment? For instance, if you could have 22 people sign up.
We would probably need to bring that to you at the time of, we would probably bring that to you in March. And my rationale to that, going back to the last meeting, as I explained it, we moved up staffing by 3 or 4 weeks so that we can run at least 1 or 2 drafts of the master schedule in February, so that we don't have the same situation we had this year where 22 or 24 or 30 sign up for a class and only 15 get it, and then we're running classes under 20. So the goal would be to try to work out as many of those conflicts before the March board meeting, to where you have to vote on on reduction of force numbers.
So the number we'll be voting on is going to be pretty solid in terms of the minimum number.
Sure,
So we don't want
unless a kid
something
dropped
dropping.
out or failed a class.
1 or
and
2 kids
progressed.
maybe?
Right.
Okay.
It doesn't address the kids who sign up or transfer in over after that point.
But basically, after that, it would.
Right.
Okay.
Kevin, with the new law, it says that we would have to reach the committee. Do we have to reach agreement if we're going to do any reduction in force by February 1?
We have,
According to this?
under our current, we follow our current collective bargaining contract
Okay.
through 2013. So that is 60 days for a tenured staff member and 45 days for a non-tenured staff member to do a reduction in force.
Because that would significantly impact the whole schedule.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Which would push it up. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none, Policy Advisory Council?
Policy Advisory Council, we met in early November. You have in your packets number 77, which will be consider as beginning as a first read or first review by the board as a whole. The Policy Advisory Council will be meeting in December. We have already approved the goals. We already approved the minimum course enrollment. The ones that are still pending now are the fund balances, which is 420, and the elimination of 412. And then we will probably be bringing forward a first read on field trips. We had some documents prepared by our attorney. We made some original corrections. We want to look at them again as a council before we bring them forward to the board. The other document that the board received in the first meeting of November from the Policy Council was the first read of the updated FMLA policy that was provided by our attorney. So unless there are significant changes by the council or board members, we may take action on the FMLA policy at the December meeting. If not, we could always push that to January. But most of that is just up to date with current federal and state law, labor laws.
Any other questions?
Policy, and maybe Tim or the policy group. We got this, we had our press packet. So how does that get handled? We read through all these, suggested policies and that. Will you then send to us your recommendation using that chart on the back?
Same way we did last time.
And then we'll either decide that or not. Or if we have a comment, should we send that ahead of time on these?
Sure.
And so will we discuss all these that were brought up in here plus some more, or just these?
Well, the pending that aren't part of this press packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin just went over, there's 5 of them on the minutes, on the notes he has here.
Right.
And then we have to look at anything in the new press packet, so
It could be several.
we haven't even read
We
them and
haven't
talked
looked at
about them
them,
ourselves yet.
Right.
Okay.
That policy 77, I would imagine that will sit out there for another month or two, but to give us time to look at that. We wouldn't rush to bring that forward to the board in
Right.
December. I would imagine January or February 1st.
Probably.
Okay.
Yep.
And my final, on the press packet, as we get the bills 2 weeks early, by email, we could probably even get this as a PDF, as opposed to having to print it and give it to us.
We're actually put a little procedure together on that, but
Oh, okay.
Kevin's working on teaching Mary Ann how to do it, I think, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Because we looked at some of the things we were going to try to do at this time,
Okay.
and then there's something, we'll go through some stuff with the council
Yeah.
before.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the goal, I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Hruska, because I made it a point to walk every board member past a couple vendors at the conference this past weekend about the amount of time and money we're spending on paper and these big packets, and there are services out there that would put all of this online for us for a small fee, and then this way you can refer back to up to 2 years of meetings. As you mentioned, these policy documents, council minutes, council notes, weekly updates, all that could be online at one central location that a board member would log in and have access to that, and you wouldn't have to lug around big folders or binders of documents, our board policy manual, so that's something I'm looking at for possibly implementation maybe next year of something to budget for. And it would almost be cost neutral because the amount of man hours of copying and stuffing envelopes and then having somebody deliver these. And
How many, did that one guy say, how many school districts in Illinois? Was it 50?
More than that.
it was more than, it was over 100.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have brought up facilities, but you brought it when you said you went through vendors at the conference. Matt, you might be up for this. One of the vendors on technology, they have a steak lunch on technology. Come and see if your district is up to par on the 5th to come and hear their talk. So we.
Vegetarian, no, I'm only joking. Okay, it depends on what type of steak they're serving, so.
So I'll give you the disc until, they're inviting all kinds of boards to come.
Okay, anything else on policy?